Hey guys, so we set up the register form, and today what we're going to do is add some validation to this. And what I mean by that is when I'm typing in an email, for example, I could just do a string of numbers and random password. And if we inspect this and we can go to our console, it'll just let me submit this this data that's bad, because I could just have an empty password, for example. So what we want to do is limit the user and not let them do bad passwords or emails and kind of check whatever they're inputting. So we were doing this on the server using Yup, and we'll look at that in a second because I wanted to go over one thing that you guys pointed out, which thank you very much. That was the TS-Lint file on the server. So I just misspelled it, so you want to make sure it is spelled like this, TS-Lint. When we're extending. So this is in packages, server, tslint.json. I was extending from the wrong thing. So fix that. So thank you guys for pointing that out. It's tslint.json there. But what I was saying is on the server, we are using what's called Yup. So what Yup does is you can specify the format of stuff. So when anyone tries to do a mutation and they pass in an email and a password, for example, on the email, we're going to verify that it is a string. It's at least length 3, and that it's a maximum of 255 characters, and that it is a valid email. And then we're also doing a similar validation on the password. So what we're going to do is now take this same Yup object and put it on our website. Now, we won't have to put it on our website if we don't want to. What we could do is make a request here, send this data to our server, and our server tells us what's wrong with it. But I think this is a little bit of a waste because we can do a lot of the checking client side, because I can check the length of the string. I don't have to send it to the server. So this is going to be more efficient if we also check it on this front end. But something to keep in mind, make sure when we move this Yup to the front end, you also keep it on the back end. It's most important to check your data on the back end because someone doesn't have to use your client. Never trust the client. That's rule number 1. So never trust users that are using your website. And so in that case, they pretend like they can send you data of any kind. So you want to check on the server that this is the case too. But anyway, let's go ahead and copy this schema right here. And I'm just going to paste it in my register view right here. Now, we need to go ahead and install Yup on our front end. We'll add this. So I'm going to cd into packages web, and I'm going to say yarn add Yup. And then we need to fill out all these things over here. So I have email not found, invalid email, and error messages. For now, I'm going to copy this all over, and then I'm going to show you a better way of doing this, how we might use yarn workspaces to avoid duplicate code. So this is one way you might do it. You might just copy over these things, and let's see, we need invalid email and email not long enough, so we can get rid of both of these. Well, actually, I think we might need password not long enough. We don't need duplicate email though. And the other thing is this register password validation. So we can copy that, paste it in here. And by the way, for those of you where I was getting this from, so this is in our server, our modules, source modules, register, our resolver. So this is our resolver, our mutation resolver for register. Alright, so we have these things. We don't need to export those. And I'm now just going to import Yup. So import Yup from Yup. The other thing I need to do is add the types for it. So yarn add as a dev dependency types /Yup. Alright, so after that we can pass this, and that's actually something I forgot to mention, is Formik has an integration with Yup. So you can actually directly pass this schema, and a better name for this is the validation schema, directly to Formik. So one of its props is the validation schema. So we could just say validation schema like that, or we can just simplify it like so. But we can pass a Yup object straight in, and Formik will automatically check it for us, which is super nice. The only thing you have to keep in mind is your schema. The names should match the names in your field or your forms. So for example, here I have email and password. In my form values up here, I have email and password. So you don't want to call them different stuff. Make sure that matches up. So the other thing is we now have access to these errors. So inside of the props, there's two things. There's touched and there's errors. So now when someone's typing, we can actually show errors, and I think it's one of these things. I'm guessing it is not label, but help. And you can specify, so on the form item, I think you can pass in basically an error message here. Now we only want to specify an error message if the users touch the form. And so what do I mean by that? So okay, I guess we have an error because a yup doesn't have a default import. Let's do yup, import yup as that. There we go. Okay, so when someone is first, I guess, come to the form, they have not filled anything out. But the form is invalid because both the email and the password are blank, and we don't want that to get submitted. So what Formik does is they keep something called touched, and it tells you whether they've looked at the field yet. So for example, I can say touched .email, and this will be a boolean of whether this field has been touched. So what I can do is if email has been touched, so the user has typed something, and there is an error on that email, then I can show it. So errors.email. Otherwise, I'm just going to show a blank string. And then I can do the same thing for the password. And so here we're just going to change this from touch.password and errors.password. All right. And I think we're good to go. We can try this out and see what happens. So here's me an email. So I type in A, and I can fill this out. And when I hit register, we get email must be a valid email. I was thinking we should also get some kind of password thing as well. I don't know if I need to like add some of that. All right, we don't get anything for the password. Another thing we can do is just console.log errors. I just kind of want to see what this object looks like. I'm thinking we should be getting an error for the password as well, unless I mess something up. So like for example, if I click register, we don't get anything. There we go. I guess I didn't make it required. Alright, so I think I just messed up the schema itself. So I say the minimum has to be 3 and the max needs to be 255, but I never mentioned that it has to be not blank. So to make it not blank, you do required. Oops. And I'm going to add this also to the register form here. So dot required. So we need to actually fix this in our server as well. But basically, you saw when I clicked register, it wasn't bringing this up before. And the reason was we did not have required. So that was what I was like a little surprised by, because I just forgot to add that. But the password should also be, for example, required. I'm going to just directly move this in here. So instead of having another object, simplify it. And I'm thinking this should not be meeting the criteria because the min length is 3 and whatnot. I'm not sure if I messed up anything else with setting this up. Why don't we just look real quick? The help text, I said touched.password. That looks good. The other thing is I want this to turn red. I don't know if there's like a color. There's a label color, there's a wrapper, there's a colon. I think I can just say style maybe and say color red, and maybe that will work. And there we go. So now we do see the password field and the email field as required. So that's perfect. I'm not sure how to get this thing to turn red. I think they had an example on their website, so let's go check it out. And the error message will change right as we're typing, so that's pretty cool. So it's now not a valid email, and as soon as I add one, so like it's now valid, the error goes away. So that's one thing you can do. So by default, Formik will validate your form on every keystroke. So every time I type a key, you'll notice we see a console log of the error. It re-renders and it revalidates whether the password is actually valid or not. And the same with the email, right? So sometimes you want this, other times you only want this to occur when the user is submitting or when they blur. So I want to show you guys both of that real quick. Well, actually before that, let's go ahead and make it red. So this should be under, the form field. And yeah, we want this right here. So that. So we can grab their code for that. And form item, do they specify, what is this one called? Unavailable choice. Let's just search it. Unavailable choice. Okay, so the ID is error, and they look like they just pass. Oh, validation status. There we go. So in our view here, instead of passing in red, you can pass in the validation status. And same up here. Okay, so we should be showing an error if touch.password and errors.password. Otherwise, we just show a blank string. And that doesn't look like it can be, so we should just say, okay, it can be undefined. Say undefined. Oh, it doesn't like it still. Oh, no multi-line JS. This is not a multi-line JS, and TS-Lint is not. I'm just going to turn this rule off. So let's go over to TS-Lint, and this is really just a React one, so I'm going to keep it in the TS. Well, you know what? We'll add it here. We won't, because we're not using React there. It wouldn't make any sense. So I'm in the TS-Lint.json for the web, and I'm just going to turn this rule off. So I'm going to say rules, because I'm fine with multi-line JS. It should take effect. I think maybe we just need to refresh it. But anyway, we can copy and paste this for up here as well. I'm going to say email, and do it like that. Okay, it's not taking effect. I'm just going to disable the inline, so you can do this, TS-Lint disable. And I was able to bring that up, so if you do command dot, it brings that up and you can disable it like that. Alright, I guess we'll just forget this for now. Or maybe I need to put it in linter options. Let's see. TS-Lint up here. No, you don't put in linting options. Okay, I'm not sure why that wasn't working. Maybe I just need to refresh it. But yeah, let's go see if it now turns red. So we're conditionally turning it red if there is an error. Ah, shoot, it's now red. It's just red all the time. Okay, so our server is up and running. I saw this development server was disconnected, so I wasn't sure why that was. Let's just refresh it. I do not want to save that. Alright, cool. So this is what I wanted. I want it to be not red. So I don't know if you guys saw that. So when we first come to the page, we have not touched the field, right? And so it is not a red. As soon as I touch it, and I, for example, add a letter, and we can start typing, and I have an invalid email, right? So now the email must be a valid one, and the password it doesn't like. you guys may be wondering, why is it sometimes turn red and sometimes doesn't? This is the blurring validation. So how that works is, so there's two types of validation, and this is what I want to show you guys. And these you can toggle on and off. So there is change validation. So validate on change. So we can change this to false. And what that does is, as you saw, every keystroke I typed, it would validate the form or the data, and it would show an error. If you turn it off, you can still validate. So this is a bad email, right? As soon as I click to password, we unfocus this field, and it'll validate. So we get email must be a valid email. Now, if we change this to a bob@bob.com, this is a valid email now. It will not validate or update, re-render, until I click over here, because I blurred it, I defocused it. And so every time you defocus the field, it'll so like I now have a valid password, I unfocus it, it'll validate. So there's one, and you can even turn that one off. So validate on blur, false. Was it not? Oh yeah, I spelled validate wrong. There you go. So now the only time this will get validated is when you submit. So type this, this is a bad email. I click away, I've unfocused the fields, I don't see any errors, but when I go to register, I see email must be, and I fix it, bob@bob.com, and then it won't, I've deselected the field, right? If we had blur validation, that would be fixed, and I can click register. So those are like kind of the 3 levels of validation that you can add with using Formik. So you can see kind of the power of Formik right here in validating things. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep it so we get like full level of validation as fast as possible and get as much stuff. And yeah, so that's just like a little introduction to using Formik and doing validation with errors. You have all those options of doing it. And then you just kind of pass in your touch.email and errors to figure out which one needs to be shown. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. What we're going to do next is I'll show you how you can move this to its own, basically own project. We're going to create a common package, and then we're going to share this code between the server and the front end, because they both want to do the same validation schema. And then the other thing, we are writing kind of duplicate code just a little bit between this, the email and the password. So we're going to show you there's a new way with Formik of how you can pass values in that makes it even better, and you write even less boilerplate. It's super nice, it's super clean. So we'll be doing that next in the next video. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, guys.